Conan gets a start in this story, chronologically, and I would argue as a truly independent character. Okay, before we get into this, I just want you to know there are spoilers ahead, so please go read Tower of the Elephant before you watch this. Chapter 1. Torches flared murkily on the revels in the mall, where the thieves of the East held carnival by night. Like the previous 2 Conan stories penned by Howard, this story starts with a bit of a setup. I don't think it strays into infodump territory, and if it did, I could easily forgive it, with prose like this. Few stories, not just in fantasy, but in all of Western lit, start so evocatively. The atmosphere of wonder and danger is set up right away, and we are assured that we will see Conan get up to something spectacular. Conan is a grey wolf among mangy rats, a vital figure in a sea of garish decay. He overhears a Kothian boasting about his kidnapping plans and mentions the Tower of the Elephant. This catches the young Conan's attention, and he would like to know more. The Kothian explains, but only to further boast of his abilities. Here we, the reader, get some info on the tower, its fabulous treasure, and its dangers. The fabulous heart of the elephant is revealed to the audience. The drunken Kothian insults Conan, and we get another famous line. He saw no particular humor in it, and was too new to civilization to understand its discourtesies. Civilized men are more discourteous than savages, because they know they can be impolite without having their skulls split, as a general thing. Well, the Kothian does have his skull split, or his body gashed, as the case may be, and Conan is straight off to the tower before any reprisals are to be had. The info dump, if you can call it, is light. Maybe too harsh to say that. There's definite world building, and the details are great. There's a sense of wonder and possibility. Howard kills it like a Kothian in this chapter. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, please like, share, and subscribe. Every like makes a difference for visibility, and I appreciate every sub. I'll also take a second to plug my own writings, Citadel of Seven Swords and Weird of the Skull Totem. These tell stories from the life of Skarde, the Wandering Sword. They're loosely collected standalones, and Book 3 is in the work right now. These are available on Amazon. Moving on, Chapter 2. Conan stalks the temple district toward the tower, and we see a little more of Conan's thinking about deeper things. He did not trouble his head about them. He knew that Zamora's religion, like all things of a civilized, long-settled people, was intricate and complex, and had lost most of its pristine essence in a maze of formulas and rituals. He reflects on spirituality, though, and we get both character and world building. It was useless to call on Crom, because he was a gloomy savage god, and he hated weaklings. But he gave man courage at birth, and the will and might to kill his enemies, which, in the Cimmerian's mind, was all any god should be expected to do. This is important, not only for these reasons, but for world-building reasons, but it's also a part of what drives Conan, something a lot of modern people do not understand, and I'll go into that a little bit more later on. There's a wonderful rising tension as Conan hides from a guard before he sneaks into the tower's grounds and contemplates Yara's terrible reputation. Moments later, he rushes out into the open, into a bush, and trips over the very same guard's corpse that he had hid from. Then, in a tense standoff, he meets Taurus, the Prince of Thieves. "You are no soldier," hissed the stranger at last. You are a thief like myself." This scene was lifted straight from the story and plunked into the 1982 movie, save that there is a much more attractive character in Taurus's place. They soon realize that they are both thieves and join forces. This is Taurus of Nemedia, and Conan has heard of him. He is called the Prince of Thieves. Is Taurus's friendliness toward Conan unrealistic? Maybe he's just a friendly guy, or maybe he sees Conan's presence as a boon. Conan can clearly fight and might help, and also be hard to get rid of. Also, he might spring a trap that Taurus might get. Taurus shows some charisma and people skills, and his motives are hard to pin down. As for Conan, on one level, Conan is impressed with Taurus's planning and knowledge. And on another, I think he is pleased to work with a man with the reputation of Prince of Thieves. As I will show, this ties in with Conan's motivation more strongly than attaining the gem itself. Howard impresses us with Taurus's intelligence and planning as he uses toxic poisons to deal with the lions in the garden and produces a possibly magical rope he has painstakingly procured. Even this is not quite enough, though. Conan, with his lightning-quick reflexes, dispatches one lion that Tarsus missed. The tower is described beautifully, with great descriptions of pulsating jewels and mystical light. There's something unearthly about the whole thing. At the top of the tower, Taurus asks Conan to check over the sides of the tower wall for guards in the garden as he enters a room at the top. "Before we cut off our last retreat," hissed Taurus, "go you to the rim and look over on all sides. If you see any soldiers moving in the gardens or anything suspicious, return and tell me. I will await you within this chamber." Conan saw scant reason in this, and a faint suspicion of his companion touched his wary soul. But he did as Taurus requested. What is Taurus up to? Whatever his plans were, they are cut short as he stumbles back out of the door and dies. Most men, I think, would pry out a few gems from the walls of the tower and leave the way that they came. Not Conan. He doesn't even consider a retreat. Cautiously, he moves forward. He discovers a room of incredible treasures, and suddenly dodges a hairy black horror. Venom burns his shoulder, and he knows death has missed him by inches. The fight scene between man and spider is fantastic and goes on for a sizable 850 words. It makes a good study of an action scene as a mini story. Few writers can pull off an extended fight scene like this, but Howard, who has already written a large number of boxing stories where the warp and weft of the fight is the story itself, pulls off the scene masterfully. Having just won the fight, he is unwilling to turn about and continues through a golden door. Chapter 3. Right away, Conan finds the secret at the heart of the tower. He was looking into a large chamber with a domed golden ceiling. The walls were of green jade, the floor of ivory, partly covered with thick rugs. Smoke and exotic scents of incense floated up from a brazier on a golden tripod, and behind it sat an idol on a sort of marble couch. Conan stared aghast. The image had the body of a man, naked and green in color, but the head was one of a nightmare and madness. Too large for the human body, it had no attributes of humanity. Conan stared at the wide, flaring ears, the curling proboscis on either side of which stood white tusks, tipped with round golden balls. The eyes were closed, as if in sleep. Howard was obviously inspired here by his friend H.P. Lovecraft. It's a brilliant opium dream of a scene. When the thing opens its eyes, Conan is frozen in otherworldly horror. His terror is mollified when he realizes the creature is blind. Then he realizes the creature's body is tortured and broken. He feels pity, wonder, and shame. This is proof that Conan is not the thuggish murderer that Howard's many detractors claim, but capable of deep thought, imagination, melancholy, and sadness. The creature wonders if it is Yara come to torture him again. "I am not Yara," he said. "I am only a thief. I will not harm you." Yag-Kosha, the creature himself, asks Conan to come close. Howard drops more world building from his work, The Hyborian Age. Keep in mind that only snippets of that had been published, and a partial version was printed in the Fantagraph in 1936, long after this story. "O man, listen," said the strange being. "I am foul and monstrous to you, am I not? Nay, do not answer. I know. But you would seem strange to me could I see you. There are many worlds besides this earth, and life takes many shapes. I am neither god nor demon, but flesh and blood like yourself, though the substance differ in part, and the form be cast in a different mold." Yag-Kosha is an alien creature, not something you see in modern fantasy, not very much anyway, and much more natural in the pulps, before genre fiction was awkwardly divided into fantasy and science fiction, largely for political reasons. Howard paints a picture of a noble being who appears hideous. "We swept through space on mighty wings that drove us through the cosmos quicker than light," he says, after waging a rebellion on his home planet. He also says, "We saw your people rise under a new name from the jungles of the apes that had been Atlanteans." This supports the idea that Conan and his people have Atlantean roots, if distant. Yag-Kosha can sense that Conan has killed a man in a tavern, and that Taurus has died in the tower above. This makes possible some magic he is planning, magic that can free him. And the third will make the magic of which not even Yara dreams. Oh, magic of deliverance, green gods of Yag. After an explanation of how Yara forced Yag-Kosha to use his powers for evil, he asks Conan to free him and to deal with Yara. "For I feel the end of time draw near. You are the hand of fate. I beg of you, take the gem you will find on yonder altar." Conan receives instructions on how to proceed. He must cut out Yag-Kosha's heart and then confront Yara. He has the gem, and he could leave with it, but he doesn't. He goes forth as instructed and confronts Yara. The priest is terrified, shrinks, and is consumed by the gem. Now he had shrunk until the great jewel towered above him like a hill, and Conan saw him cover his eyes with his hands as if to shield them from the glare, as he staggered about like a madman. Conan sensed that some unseen magnetic force was pulling Yara to the gem. Thrice he raced wildly about in narrowing circles. Thrice he strove to turn and run out across the table. Then, with a scream that echoed faintly in the ears of the watcher, the priest threw up his arms and ran straight toward the blazing globe. After this, Conan acts as instructed, and he runs downward through the tower, guided somehow. So mazed was he that it did not occur to him to escape from the tower by the way he had entered it. The guards are dead, and Conan seems to know the way. He escapes the tower as dawn arrives. Was he bewitched and enchanted? Had he dreamed all that had seemed to have passed? As he looked, he saw the gleaming tower sway against the crimson dawn, its jewel-crusted rim sparkling in the growing light, and crash into shining shards. So, a few thoughts about the story. Was he bewitched and enchanted? I think there was some obvious enchantment on both Yoga and Yara's part. Yara seems to have made himself look much larger and threatening, having no time for further spell weaving. Yoga, or Yag-Kosha, laid some sort of enchantment on Conan, I think to guide him, but there was no mind control. Conan's choice to free Yoga and leave without the gem was a choice on his part, and a heroic one. And we see in future stories that Conan, though he might be motivated by personal enrichment, makes heroic choices when put to the test. A thought here, and it's probably a stretch, I wonder if the guidance Yag-kosha showed to Conan to aid in his escape continued to guide him throughout his life. Since Conan got no reward for ending Yag-kosha's torture, did the cosmic being gift him with some sort of cosmic luck or subtle guidance? Probably not, but this is the kind of wonder that in part makes Howard's stories so appealing. There are some other criticisms I've seen pop up. Some criticisms might stick, but I don't think these do. Some critics will point out that Conan, a thief whose goal is to steal gems, ignores the riches on the tower wall, in the spider room, and the heart of the elephant itself. And this constitutes bad writing. This comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of Conan. Conan is not a merchant who maximizes profits and minimizes risk. The criticism comes from a strictly modernist, transactional, and materialist mindset. These critics don't understand the drive to glory, the burning spirit, an adventurous spirit. Conan takes on this purportedly impossible task because he is told it's beyond him. The gem is a secondary goal. This would be a good time to point out that Taurus, whose goal first and foremost was to attain the gem, died. As Rich Stump points out on the Howard Andrew Jones blog, Conan didn't want to steal the heart of the elephant to get rich. He wanted to be the man that stole it. Another criticism is that Conan is unrealistically foolhardy. No one would just run into a situation like this unprepared. Conan was somewhere between 17 and 19. I look back at the dumb and dangerous things I did, and I'm amazed that I'm still alive. If you've never been a teenage boy, I can assure you it's crazy times. Okay, I could go on, but those are my main points. So, how does Tower of the Elephant fare as a short story? Awesome, that's how. This is not my favorite RobertEHoward tale, oddly enough, but it's very near the top, and I would place it in my top 10 favorite short stories of all time. Final rating? It's a 5-star on Amazon, of course, but what about compared to Howard's other Conan tales? This one deserves a solid 5 dead giant spiders out of 5. Next up, Black Colossus. In the meantime, keep it savage.
Fight forever. I'm with them. This is incredible.